Buckle up, because today I'm going to share my step-by-step open house process that helped make one member of my team a GCI powerhouse at over $200,000 gross commission income per year. And it's easy to follow. Let's get into it. The very first thing we need to talk about is how many open houses do we need to be doing to be effective. It is in my personal experience that approximately every 4 open houses that you do effectively is going to lead to 1 closed sale. And when I say effectively, it's all of the tactics that I'm going to mention in this video. You can play and manipulate a couple of them, but for the most part, you want to stick to the tactics that are tried and true and that work. So if you're working for 48 weeks out of the year and you decide to do 1 open house each, you can expect 1 closing a month approximately. Some people are going to be more effective at these strategies, some will be less effective. A lot of that depends on personality and how closely you follow the checklist and the things I talk about in this video. So do not miss this video. If you go straight to the checklist and just hope that you're going to do it right by then, there are going to be little snippets and things that I talk about in this video that you're going to need to make that checklist effective. The very first thing that we need to do is figure out what type of open house we want to do. I've got some very basic guidelines I'm going to talk about here. They are just kind of like basic parameters. You don't have to follow them to a T. A couple of these can be a little bit off, but if you follow all of these, or at least a big majority of them, you are generally going to have more visitors at the open house, and the more visitors you have, the more at-bats you have, the more chances you have to turn a lead into an actual closing. One of the first things we want to look at is location and neighborhood. Being in a desirable neighborhood or a desirable location in your town or the area that you cover is generally a pretty good idea because, well, that's where people want to live. So they want to see what kind of houses are in there. Now, you are going to attract looky-loos, especially if you do a great location or a really popular neighborhood that's maybe outside of a lot of people's reach. So just know that going into it. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at is days on market. Typically, if you do something that's been sitting on the market for 200 days, you're not going to get as much attention as you will with everything else because the hype's over. Now, if they just did a major price drop or change something dramatically in the house, that will really help, although generally I try to stick away from that. In fact, normally for me, I like to make sure that the open houses are 30 days or less. And if it's been on the market longer than that and it's had some adjustments or something, I might make exceptions to that rule. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at is curb appeal. I have sat a lot of open houses in my day. I used to sit anywhere from 3 to 7 per week. I'm not kidding. I would literally treat it like my office, and I would sit for 8 hours a day at an open house, and that's where I'd make my cold calls and do anything else that I was doing in real estate. One thing that I noticed is with poor curb appeal, it caused a lot of people to drive up, look around, and drive off. Or if you're in an area where somebody has to drive through some not so good looking houses, the same kind of thing will happen. They'll slow roll by it and then they'll take off because it's just not as interesting to the majority of people. I'm also checking into the property condition to make sure that the property itself is clean and that there's some sort of appeal to it. There's got to be something that stands out a little bit. It doesn't need to be, a grand kitchen or a pool or anything like that. Just something that makes it a little bit better than everything else. Or if your target market is kind of entry-level homes, then that's okay too. You still want to be able to find something to spin there, and you still want the property to be clean and show very well. You don't want somebody to come into your open house and see that it needs a little bit of a cleaning, the baseboards are dirty, there's marks all over the wall and things like that, because the potential sellers that come in, and yes, you can get sellers from open houses, the potential sellers that come in are going to look at that and go, you know what, this person doesn't even know how to present a house. I don't want them selling my house down the street. And we'll talk about sellers here in a second. I want strong parking availability. I don't want this to be awkward for them to be able to pull over. A lot of people are a little bit nervous going into an open house, particularly the first-time home buyers. And if it is not very easy for them to park, a lot of them will go ahead and drive off. I also want to make sure that my house is in a semi-populated area. This doesn't need to be right in the middle of the biggest city that you've got, although sometimes that can cause more foot traffic. But I do want it to be near other homes and where other foot traffic is going to be. If I'm doing an open house way out in the rural area where it's going to take somebody miles and miles and miles to follow my signs to get there, it's going to be a lot harder to get people into the door. And the last thing that I'm looking at, probably the most important thing, is how many signs can I put up reasonably? Not how many can I shove in a row on one street, but how many signs can I put up? So as I'm going to mention here in a little bit, I will not do an open house, and I do not suggest open houses for my agents if they can't put at least 20 open house signs up. That is the bare minimum. That is like I'm feeling lazy. I'm not looking for a whole lot out of this open house. I'm only going to do 20. The signage, just the number one thing that brings people into the door. It is also one of the most important factors to bring sellers into the door to see if they are going to interview you for selling their home. Sellers that get home from a long day of work and pull into their neighborhood and see the entire neighborhood scattered with open house signs are going to think twice about their realtor, or if they don't have a realtor, they're going to think twice about, hey, maybe I should hire this person because they have absolutely littered the neighborhood with open house signs, and that's the kind of attention to detail that I want for my home. So let's pretend that we have the open house now. Here is where the checklist comes in handy. So if you go down to the remarks section of this video, you'll see a link. You can get the checklist that I'm talking about here. You can tailor it for yourself so that you can do whatever you need to do. But here is where I generally start. Now, this first little category is going to be 3 days before the open house, but that's just what I put it on the checklist. You can do this whole section a little bit earlier if you would like, especially if you know that you're ramping up for this open house. I probably wouldn't do these things any faster than 2 weeks prior to the open house, though, because some of the ads and stuff that we're going to talk about are going to fatigue at that point. So first and foremost, confirm the date and time with the listing representative if it's not your own, and ask them to put it in your multiple listing service. We can't stress this one enough. A listing agent that doesn't put it into the multiple listing service is not getting this syndicated out to Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, and hundreds of other sites. Now, in fact, every MLS that I know of will do that for you, unless you're in a city like New York where they've got kind of different rules or something like that. Then in that case, you might have to tweak this strategy a little bit. But the point is, you want to get it on these sites because this is where you're going to get a big bulk of your reach for basically free. Next thing you want to do is print out a small map of the neighborhood, or just go onto the Google Maps and figure out how many signs you're going to need by looking at where the sign placement is going to be. And I'm generally going to start at the main thoroughfare and work my way backwards to the home. On the main thoroughfare, I want to put a bunch of signs out. In fact, I generally put at least 3 for each turnoff that needs to happen. So if it's a main thoroughfare that's obviously got, traffic going left and right, I want to put 3 right before, and I'm going to space them out pretty good because people are flying by, okay? They're going at 45, 55 miles an hour. The first one's not going to catch their attention, or maybe it starts to. The second one, they're like, ooh, an open house. And the third one, they're like, ooh, okay, got it. And I want to make sure that there's a sign writer on top of these, okay? A little writer that says Sunday at 1 to 3 or Saturday 10 to 4, whatever you're sitting. I try to get a couple of those. I don't put those on all of my signs because people are going to steal them, or county code's going to come out and take them and things like that. So it does get a little bit pricey, but we want to put at least 2 of the sign writers at the main thoroughfare. I'm going to do this on the other side of the street, and if there is a center median, I'm also going to do it there with all arrows pointing to the direction that they need to go. And I'm going to do this at 2 or 3 different spots that lead into that neighborhood, or that could lead into that neighborhood. Outside of that, I want them to see a sign every turnoff. So if they turn off into it, they should have another sign that they see. Reason being is if they have to drive too far without seeing a sign, some people are going to turn off, and then they're going to go, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go home. It's not that important. But if they can see the next sign, they're like, oh, okay, cool, I go to that sign. Oh, now I need to turn here. Now I go into that sign. And I keep doing this. I will generally plaster every 4-way stop with a sign from that point on. Here's a little trick for you. Keep a nice little letter with you that just says, hey, I've placed my open house sign in your yard. If for any reason this bothers you, please give me a call and I'll swing by and take it down immediately. And then you can door knock each of these neighbors and just say, hey, I'm putting out this open house sign. Would you be opposed to me throwing an open house sign in your yard? I'm going to do it right on the corner, so it's not going to bug you or anything like that. Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. And then continue on. And if not, go ahead and don't put it in that yard so that you don't lose that sign in that state, because, again, it does get expensive after a while. So now that you've got the entire place plastered with signs, make sure that at the open house, the actual house itself, you've got another one of those sign writers, and you're good to go on signs for the time being. Now that we are 3 days or more ahead of time, I'm just getting the signs prepped. I'm not actually putting them out yet. I'm generally going to do that at 48 hours prior, maybe a little bit less depending on the area. We want to research to make sure that we can put open house signs that early, because in a lot of counties or a lot of cities or a lot of code ordinances are going to take those down automatically. And then if you're in an HOA, some of them don't allow it unless it's a certain time period, and some of them don't allow it at all. So make sure you do your research on that before you pick this as your open house, so that you know that you've got signs out. Because again, I'm spending so much time on this because these signs are that important. Then the next thing I would do is get with your lender or go into Canva and create a nice, beautiful flyer. put no more than 4 photos on there. You want to tease this a little bit, and I generally leave one of these 4 photos out, and I generally do 3 because I want to entice them a little bit, and I want them to go, oh, I got to go look at that. So here are the 4 main points of a home that people want to look at: the master bathroom, the kitchen, the front of the house, and the backyard. So I'll generally take one of these features out, not the best one, maybe the second best one. I take that one out. So this way, if they have a beautiful backyard, that's going to be the big one right there. And then if maybe their kitchen is second best, it's like pretty good, I'm going to remove that one. And I'm going to make sure I put a teaser in there in the flyer somewhere. Wait until you see this kitchen at 123 Main Street or whatever the address is. Now when I'm getting with my lender or I'm making them on Canva or what have you, I'm going to print out 120 of these flyers. I know, it's a lot. And I know you're thinking, we're not going to get 120 people through this open house. Maybe, maybe not. That's not the point. I'm going to print that many out because we're going to be door knocking this neighborhood with 100 of these. And if you're not as comfortable door knocking, you can absolutely just drop the flyers off if you want. But the real magic happens when you actually door knock them and talk to the neighbors. In my personal experience, for every 100 houses you hit, you're going to have one person that is just not having a good day, that doesn't want to talk to you, and one person that's going to make the whole thing better. But door knocking the neighborhood with these flyers is one of the most powerful strategies to help attain sellers. If your side point is to get sellers as well as buyers, you want to make sure that you're being effective with your time, then this is the way to do it. Don't skip on that. This is also when I'm going to create the event that is open to the public. Or of course you can do this private if you plan on sending this out to a bunch of people, or you can do both. But I like to do it in the public because I want everybody to see it. I want as much exposure as possible. And then I'm going to go into all the buy-sell groups, the houses for sale groups, homes for sale groups and stuff in the area within Facebook. And I'm going to start blasting this out. And I'm going to put a reminder in to blast one of these out every single day or every other day, depending on how early that you're doing this portion of the checklist. You can also start building some of your digital ads if you're going to be running digital ads. In my experience, the signage is more important than the digital ads. I have spent a lot of money on digital ads trying to push people into open houses before, and for some reason, the signs just seem to work a little bit better. Okay, now let's move on to the next section of the checklist. 2 days prior of actually doing the open house, here are the things that I suggest that you do. So this is when you're going to start door knocking the neighborhood and placing your signs. You can do either one, whichever way makes sense for you, that's up to you. But door knock 100 doors, and I suggest going 50 on either side, both across the street and on the same side. Now, if you want to do more, that's even better, but 100 is the bare minimum. Just like signs, it's like just the bare minimum to kind of get a little bit of engagement going on and get a little bit better traction to your open house. When you're done with the door knocking, I suggest you go back to your office and you circle prospect the entire neighborhood. And this might take you a day or two, depending on how big the neighborhood is, but I'm going to try to hit as many of those phone calls as possible. If you're curious on where you find the names and numbers for these, most CRMs, at least most decent CRMs, they're going to have an option for this. For ours, we use Chime here at LPT Realty. It's got a very easy tool that just says, hey, here's your GeoFarm, draw a map, and we're going to pull every piece of contact information for every human that lives there. And this is simple. You can find a ton of scripts online, but you're just inviting them to the open house. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith at 123 Main Street said, invite everybody, invite the entire neighborhood. Maybe they know somebody that wants to live in my home. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing what my sellers have asked me to do, and I'm calling the neighborhood to invite you to it. And if you want, you can have the open house for a set time for the public, and an hour before or 30 minutes before you can do it just for the neighborhood. This strategy used to be a little bit more popular, and then since COVID, it kind of trailed off a little bit, but it is still powerful because what it does is it lets you know exactly who's walking through the door. Because if they're 30 minutes early or an hour early and you've invited them that way, then you know their neighbor and you know that you can tailor the conversation a little bit differently, and that will just make the conversation that much easier. While you're out door knocking the neighborhood, or maybe a little bit before, this is when I take videos of the home, doing an up and down video and also sideways, because you're going to use these for some of your digital ads if you decide to run them. And I also like to do a nice portrait video, up and down, where I go, hey, it's Andrew. I'm sitting here at 123 Main Street. I just want to show you guys this amazing kitchen. Boom, show it to them. Boom. I'm going to be out here on Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. I would absolutely love to see you. Oh, and by the way, if you know of anybody that this house might be good for, please share this video with them. And then you're going to push that out to your database. You can also push these on those buy-sell groups that we kind of talked about before to get a little bit of extra engagement instead of just photo ads. Then, of course, you're going to role play your scripts. You should be doing this at every step along the process. So I'm not going to mention that one again, but just note that you should be role playing your scripts, whatever those scripts look like for you. We will have some script examples for you, but it's not that cosmic, okay? Just practice what you're going to say, practice a few objections, and just get somebody in your office to go back and forth with. This is generally the part of the checklist where I'm going to do my research on the comparables. I go up, down, sideways, and different. That's kind of like how I remember it. I want to make sure I find 3 properties that are above in price, up, 3 properties that are below the price, down, 3 properties that are sideways, comparable, and then at least 3 that are different. So this could be like a condo or maybe a house with more bedrooms, less bathrooms, more bathrooms, vice versa, what have you. If it's a 4-bedroom home, I will pick a couple of 3-bedroom homes and a condo or a townhome. If it's a 3-bedroom home, I'll pick 4-bedroom homes and, 2 4-bedroom homes and 1 condo or something like that, but just different. And the reason why we're going to do this is because when they come through the open house, if it's not for them, I have something else to point to and go, you know what? You said that this house was too big for you. So is a 3-bedroom a little bit better for you? Yeah, 3 bedrooms, exactly what I'm looking for. It's just me and my wife. Awesome. Hey, I've got these 3 here. If you'd like, as soon as this open house gets done, I can go ahead and show one of these properties to you. It might fit your budget a little bit better or might fit what you're looking for a little bit better. However, you need to word that based on the conversation that happened. This way, you get an instant sort of appointment with them. Now, you want to make sure that you use some of the other strategies we're going to talk about here in a second to make sure you're not showing properties to somebody that's working with somebody and stuff like that. But this is a great way to get that appointment, spend some extra time building rapport, and then gather that business and help that lead out. Next up, I'm going to put together a whole home booklet. This is going to seem like a little bit more work than you want to do right now, but don't worry, because once you create these home booklets for each town in your area, they're a lot easier to add on to them. So the first thing I want to do is put a bunch of good photos of this home as well as all of the property information. So the type of material on the countertops, the type of flooring, just anything about the home, I want to make sure I have all of that readily available. We also use a sheet that shows their utilities, how much they're paying, anything extra that they have like cable, internet, just the whole idea of the cost to own of the property. Then we want to put things like tax information, the seller's disclosure, surveys, just anything that you can pull off of the multiple listing service or information that you have from the seller if it's your listing. Put all of that in one nice book. And don't forget some community information and some school information. This way, if any of those things come up, you can go, hey, come on over here and take a look at this. Another thing that this is going to do is it's going to show the sellers that you're putting extra care and attention to detail to the property. So if it's one of these sneaky neighbors that are kind of thinking about, hey, is this going to be a good agent for me? They walk in there, they've seen all these signs, you've done all the stuff properly that we're going to talk about here in just a second to greet them and talk to them about the home. Now they see this book, now they see all the other stuff you've done, and now you're in the running to list their home. Whew, all right, now it seems like a lot, but it happens all pretty quickly. So now let's move on to one day before, so about 24 hours before the open house. These are the steps that I suggest. Get a showing kit together. Once you do this once, you'll never have to do it again. So this is more of a one-time thing, but make sure that everything that you need is in there. And I put things like blank contracts, a flashlight just in case something happens, or I need to look into the crawl space or something like that. Notepads, I want to do coloring books and crayons for the kids to kind of get them off the parents' backs. They can sit at the dining room table and color a little bit. I'm going to want to make sure that I've got toilet paper, because if I'm sitting a vacant house that doesn't have any toilet paper, that could become an issue. I also want to do a tape measure, a level, and then any extra stuff that the house might have. So samples of paint, shingle colors, anything like that, if it's a specialty type of property where some of that might be an option. Especially if maybe they need to put a new roof on and the seller's already willing to do that, but they don't want to put it on because they don't know what color the new buyer is going to want. That kind of extra information is what I would put in there. It's pretty rare, but it's important to put there because it just shows that much extra level of detail, and as well as shows the buyers what options they would have if they did purchase this property. Next up, I'm going to print a guest registrar. I actually bought one off of Amazon that's like a nice fancy book that just says guests on it. It's probably meant for like a wedding or something like that, but it works really well. You can create this on Canva. You can find one online. The main things that you want are name, phone number, email, and address. The address is important for the follow-up. And now that we're 24 hours out, now is a really good time to start really hitting your database with this stuff. So anybody that you know that happens to be looking for this type of property or looking in this city, I'm going to call them up and I'm going to say, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm doing an open house at 123 Main Street. It's got this and this, 4-bed, 3-bath. It's 2 blocks from the water. It's got an amazing backyard. Just a little bit about the property. If your database is really big, consider doing this via ringless voicemail or text messages or even emails. And if you're a little bit afraid of the phone, you can use either one of those methods as well. But generally the phone's going to be the most effective. And as you're doing more and more open houses, this database of phone numbers to call gets bigger and bigger because you're going to call the person from an open house 6 months ago, 2 months ago, 3 weeks ago, so on and so forth. And if you're doing open houses in the same city every single month, this gets even easier because you could just hit almost all of them every single week. And a cool little thing you can do too, if you run Facebook ads, you can actually upload that CSV file of anybody that's been searching in your town for these parameters, and you can actually run digital ads on these people. Now, I would do this step a couple of days ago in the 3-day checklist or before, if that's what I'm planning on doing, but kind of forgot about it, so I'm throwing it in here now. All right, we've done all this work and now it's time for the actual day of the open house. Now, before I go into these strategies, this is where the money making happens. I'm going to throw up all of my information on the screen. You guys can call me, contact me if you have any questions, especially if you have questions about LPT Realty. It is a great company that I moved my entire team over to, so if you have any questions on that. And of course, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Always show up early. Please show up early. Please, 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 I can't emphasize this enough, show up early. I see real estate agents all the time. I pull up to the open house before they do. Now, I don't go to as many of them as I used to, but I used to go kind of look at open houses to see what other people are doing, to see if there's something I could be adding into mine. And I would see them rolling up 2 minutes late, a minute and a half before, things like this, with their little Starbucks coffee all jaunting in, just opening up, turning on the lights as we're going in. Please don't do that. Show up early, get everything set up. I'm generally going to set up a table with my sign-in sheet and all of the other information, the flyers, any property information that I want for them to take with them. And I'm going to place that either right next to the front door or outside in front of the front door. This way it's the first thing that happens. Now, if you want to make sure that you get as many people signing in as possible, put it outside if you've got an overhang. Don't do it if it doesn't have an overhang because people don't want to stand in the heat, the sun beaming down, or worse, the rain beaming down, or the wind comes by and just blows everything away. But if you do have the opportunity to put it there and it's a good spot to put it in, it helps them sign in because you're going to be greeting them at the door. They're going to see a person blocking the door and then see the sign-in sheet and go, okay, I guess I've got to do this. But there's other tactics you can use that will help them sign in on your sheet. Now, I'll get back to that here in a second. Make sure you place your open house banner. If you've got one of those feather flags out, we keep several of them here in the office. It's just a nice little touch. It's not that necessary. Don't go spending money on this, but if you have it available to you, or you are going to add this as one of your strategies that you're doing all the time, I would suggest investing in them. They're like $40 to $50. In fact, you can get like 3 of them for like $70 if you want to get a nice little bulk purchase there. Make sure that you add light inside of the home, so go through the whole home, turn on all the lights, open up all of the windows. You can do what I call sunny side up on the sunny side of the window. Make sure that portion is up so that the sun can push as much light in, or of course, move the blinds out of the way completely to get all of that natural light. I would also spend a few minutes shooting a quick video in the home, reminding everybody that you're at the house for the next couple hours. You know, nice little selfie video. Hey, I'm in the kitchen of 123 Main Street. Look at these countertops. It's amazing. Listen, if you guys want to come by, it's at 123 Main Street in X City. Please come by and see me. I'd absolutely love to hang out with you for a bit. I'm also going to spend a couple of minutes putting my business cards in different rooms, generally bathrooms and the kitchen. This way, if somebody felt a little bit weird taking a business card in front of me and they happen to be walking around the house and you start building rapport with them and they're like, I want to take one of these cards but don't want to have them see it, I can pocket it from the bathroom. It's a small tactic, but I do notice that a lot of those business cards go missing. Okay, now we're set up. Now the guests start arriving. What are we going to do? My main strategy is called a greet and release system. Do not follow people around the open house, please. They don't like it. It just makes everything a little bit more palpable, and we do not want that at the open house. We want this to be inviting. We want it to be easy for them to come through, and we don't want to create a bad experience for them, especially if we're doing this tactic regularly. Because if we push some people out and now they're just going to call the Zillow person instead of going to the open houses, that's probably not a good thing. So make it nice and relaxed for them. So I'll generally say something like, hey, Thank you so much for 123 Main Street. All of the information is right there. If you don't mind signing in for me, these sellers have asked me to have everybody sign in, so please do that for them. And feel free to walk around. If you have any questions at all, my name is Andrew. Just yell it and I will come running, okay? Again, my name is Andrew. And then I just let them go. I say my name twice every single time to make sure that they've got that in there. Generally, if they seem receptive to it, I'm going to find out their information. I'm generally not going to shake hands at this point just because COVID kind of ruined that for us. But I'm in the South, so I could get away with doing that if I wanted to. It is kind of normalized, I guess, by now. But it's not something that I've added into my general habit, I guess. Make sure that you stop any conversation you're having every time a new person comes through the door. Even if you're having a really good conversation, just say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, thank you so much for the conversation. Let me just peel away just for a moment to greet them. The seller asked me to greet everybody at the door. So I've got to do that real quick. And then just walk away, introduce yourself, same thing. Hey, feel free to roam around the house. Let me know if you have any questions at all. My name's Andrew. If you yell my name, I'll come running again. My name's Andrew. Let me know if you have any questions. Go back to the other conversation, especially if it's a good one and I'm in the middle of rapport building. Now, here's a really cool thing. I go to whichever area I'm set up in, generally the kitchen or a centralized place that can see the front door. That's where I like to hang out. And I'm going to watch where they go first. Most people will go to the most important room first. So let's pretend the husband goes straight to the garage and the wife goes to the master bedroom and bathroom. I'm going to take quick note of that and wait until they naturally come back into my field again and then go, hey, I noticed you went to the garage. What did you think? Did you like that shelving that was in there? And start a conversation about it. And when the wife comes back around or vice versa, however it goes, hey, I noticed you went to the master bedroom. How did you like that bathroom? Did you see that big soaking tub? And just mention something about that. You don't need to sell this. Hey, did you see that? It was the best bathroom I've ever seen. Don't do that. You don't know what they've seen. Just ask them about a feature in that room or in that area and see if it's up to their liking. So, hey, did you see that big soaking tub? Yeah, oh yeah, it was great. Is that something that you're looking for in your next home? Oh yeah, and that's generally how I start trying to gauge what they're looking for, if they're looking for anything, because some people are just coming through to look through. Now, by asking like, hey, is that something that you're looking for? That's going to start opening up that dialogue a little bit and going, hey, we're actually not looking. We're neighbors down the road. We just wanted to see it just because it was here. It's in our neighborhood. We thought it'd be kind of cool. No worries. Now you can tailor that conversation a little bit differently in the future interactions as they go walking around. So instead of being like, is this the property for you? You can now be like, hey, do you know somebody that this would be a good house for? Something like that to get more conversation going. Or, hey, I know you said you're not in the market to buy a house, but when is the next time that you're going to be in the market for a property? And then you can start having that dialogue there. The point is to gather something from them that you can follow up with, because most of these sales for open houses are going to happen in the follow-up. They're not going to happen right there at the open house, as most people might believe. And then I let them go again. They see the rest of the house. As they're starting to transition out the door, ask them if they have any questions specific to the house, and then if they have any feedback. And then here's the kicker. This is one of the last questions I like to ask. And it's almost never the last question because it almost always starts more conversation. But as it looks like they're kind of posturing to leave, I go, hey, do you have somebody sending you off-market properties? Or do you have somebody sending you deals in our marketplace? I like using off-market properties because we all have access to them. And very few other realtors are mentioning that. This is going to get over the objection of, do you have a realtor? Because that's what we want to ask, right? We want to be like, hey, are you already working with a realtor, or am I free to keep poaching you, right? Well, this is just a different kind of way to ask that. And what this generally does is it has them stop and go, no, wait, what do you mean off-market properties? Or, hey, what do you mean by deals in our marketplace? Now, if you're looking at this video right now going, I don't have any off-market properties, I'm brand new, or I don't keep a lot of listings, or I don't keep pocket listings, that's just fine. Most multiple listing services will have a coming soon section that the public cannot see, depending on your MLS rules and state rules and stuff like that. That's how it is here. And even if it is out there to the public, you also have Zillow.com, which has a whole array of for sale by owners that are not marketed to the public very well. So you can add those to your off-market property list. So these off-market properties or deals, these are the carrots that you're going to dangle in front of them to get them kind of excited. And then when they go, no, we don't have anybody sending us off-market properties, this is when you can follow up. Hey, have you signed an agreement with any other realtor? I don't want to overstep anything, or depending on what your rules are in your state, again, follow all of that. Be ethical, please. Don't do anything shady. And if they go, well, no, we're talking to a couple, we haven't signed anything. Okay, great. Is your email on that sign-in sheet? Is that accurate? Yes. Walk over there, make sure you read it out loud to them and make sure it makes sense, because their handwriting might not be that great. You might mistake a 1 for an L or something like that. So just read out to them. You're like, yeah, you're Bad Mama Jamma 14 at protonmail.com, right? Okay, great. I will get you that list out a little bit later. And feel free to go through it. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And then just keep that spreadsheet with you, whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's a cool little Canva thing you make. Don't worry about making this right now. Worry about making it when somebody says yes. It's not that hard to come up with this stuff. It'll take you 30 minutes and a quick Google search or a quick Zillow search on top of your multiple listing service. And of course, many pocket listings that you might have. And then, of course, by this time, they're generally transitioning out. And let's pretend the open house is over. You had a few people through. You've got some contact information. What do we do now? There are a ton of different scripts and things out there. But the main thing that you need to know is follow-up is where the money is at. If you're not going to follow up with these people that signed in at your open house, I wouldn't even bother doing open house as a strategy. I'm just going to be completely honest, because most of the sales happen right there. Some of them will happen in the house. You will build enough rapport and get that appointment right there at the house, which is something you're definitely going to want to do. I didn't really mention that in the day of thing, but that is one thing that you're looking for is, can you find an in to get an appointment for a buyer's consultation? And if you cannot, 50% of the sales are going to be happening in the follow-up. So just make sure you're following up properly. I always send a video email. I do that through bombbomb.com. You can get a subscription. I think it's like 40 or 50 bucks a month. It's not that cosmic. Or of course, you can do this on Zoom. It's just a little bit of extra steps in the process. Or you can just send a text, a phone call, an email, whatever is best for you. But contact these people and just say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, just wanted to thank you for coming to the open house. I know that you said blank, 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 whatever they happen to talk about, make those little notes. And I noticed you said you weren't in the market, that you were just a neighbor. I just wanted to just reach out and say thank you so much. This seller really appreciates that you came by. And then anybody that showed any sort of interest, I'm going to be trying to push for that buyer's consultation. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Toby, I appreciate you coming to the open house today. I know you said you weren't working with a real estate professional. I wanted to offer my services, not necessarily as a real estate professional, but just as a buyer consultation. This is completely free. There's no obligation. You don't have to sign with me, but it is great information on the market. We're going to go over what's important to you and what you're looking for in a home. We're going to deep dive into that. We're going to talk about the actual market here that we're dealing with. We're going to talk about some strategies to make sure that you get a winning offer when you're ready to put an offer in, and how you can go about getting the best deal in our marketplace. When's a good time to set that up? And I'm going to keep pushing for that in my follow-up. If they're a little bit further out and they've already told me they're a year out and they're just kind of feeling it out, I'm just going to try to build that rapport on a little bit further than what I've already done at the open house. And of course, for anybody that seemed like they were interested in the off-market properties, go ahead and put them on that sort of drip, or a reminder to send that to them once every few weeks or once a week, what have you, just depending on what their timeline looks like. So there's no like, hey, this is the best way to do it. A lot of it is just based off of them, because somebody that says they're a year out and they don't really want to talk too much to an agent, you start spamming them an email every 3 days, they're going to unsubscribe, they're going to block it, they're going to stop taking your phone calls. So you do want to make it appropriate. You can also put them on automated drips. This way they're still getting something in the middle of you not calling them. You can do this by newsletters, you can do this by market reports or market snapshots in your CRM. You can do this through future properties that are coming up on the market, and of course the off-market properties we talked about before. And of course, any future open houses that you're going to do, you're going to mark all of that into your CRM and say, this person's looking in this city, and this is the kind of stuff they're looking at. Or I met them in this city if you didn't get enough information. And every single time you do an open house in that city or for a similar property, you're going to call them up, and you're going to follow that up with a voicemail if they don't answer, and a text and an email. I always hit all four of those, technically three of them: call, voicemail, text, email. Every single time for every single person, until I figure out how they like to communicate. Then I'll start honing in on that. And you want to do the same thing with your open house guests, because, well, they're a lead just like anything else. The difference is they're just a lead that turns a little bit better than, say, an online lead. Whew. That is a whole bunch. Don't worry. I know this video was a little bit longer. I know there's a lot of little things, little nuances that I mentioned here, but the point is there's a checklist down below. You can use this every single time. You won't have to worry about it. And once you build the habit, you won't have to do this anymore. You won't have to think about it anymore. We've been following this strategy for almost a decade now. It still works. It worked back in 2014. It works in 2018, worked in 2021, and it works today. I'm watching my agents be successful with it day in and day out. So make sure you follow this. And of course, all of my information is going to pop up on the screen. If you have any questions about LPT Realty, please give me a shout, like, and definitely hit that subscribe button. If you've made it this far, you got some sort of value, don't miss out on future value by not hitting that subscribe button, and definitely make sure you ding that little bell so that you'll be notified every single time I do a new video. And that's all I've got for you on open houses. I hope this complete guide was helpful, and I'll see you guys in another video.